Hello and welcome back to the Co-op Chat podcast. My name is Jordan Adams and I am of course joined by my co-host Scott Robertson. Today for Halloween, we'll be ending off our sort of like Silent Hill trilogy of sorts with PT, aka the playable teaser. Um, it was released on August 12th, 2014. PT initially it
Jeez.
popped up on the PS4 store. I know, yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Mm.
It popped up on the PS4 store as sort of like free download, sort of out of nowhere around the time. Well, it was in August, so it was around the time like trailers were coming out and stuff. So it had that going for it at the time. There was no sort of build up or anything prior to it being released. No trailers,
Nope.
sort of like nothing was there really.
No, it just popped out, and it was right before E3 of that year, I think.
Mm,
So then I think that it was something like no, it was right after it because Hideo Kojima basically said he's doing a new project,
mm,
and his game PT is out now in the store, and he encourages everyone to play it, but to keep it hush hush, keep it
mm,
quiet. So
yeah.
everyone played it, and they got to the end, and lo and behold, it turned out to be the teaser to a new Silent Hill title, um, which rest in peace.
Yeah, and then essentially from there, the sort of like first exposure it got was through like YouTube videos, wasn't it? It was like PewDiePie, Game Grumps, Markiplier. They got like millions upon millions of
Yeah.
views, all the mainstream channels essentially. So that's where I sort of first heard of the game. Where did you sort of hear it from it, like
So
similar?
I paid attention to Rollerball when it's announced. Hideo Kojima's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, game developer of all time. Whilst I am shit at Metal
Yeah.
Gear Solid, at least the original ones, I still love them and the way he creates video games. And even before that, when you go back to have a look at his older stuff, some of his horror esque games which he came up with, it was like almost a perfect fit. So
Mm,
when I found out that he did a
yeah.
playable teaser that happened to be a horror game, or rather, when he made a game called PT, I was on that shit like the second it came out. It's like download, download, download. Um, and yeah, finding out everything else about it was a nice treat. And then it just kept going on, and then it
Mm.
stopped, and misery ensued.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was directed by Hideo Kojima, like we say, and developed by his studio Kojima
So it
Productions
was it
under.
was
But
yeah, sort of. So it was like
yeah,
it was before they were
it,
called Kojima Productions, so it was like just before
yeah.
that. But I believe like the majority of it were the same team. Yeah,
Hmm. But it was as you would know, it's under the pseudonym 7780
yeah,
Studio, and it also used. I'm pretty sure it used the Fox
yeah. Fox
engine as
Sound or something
well.
like that. Yeah,
So it's sort of the same engine as the most recent
five.
Metal Gear
Yeah,
games, and
and
like
unfortunately
I think the other
survive.
like the
What the fuck did Konami
and
do?
the I think it was the Pro Evolution. I think it was the Pro Evolution soccer games as well. I think they used the same engine, weirdly
Yeah, I
enough.
can imagine that.
Yeah, the pseudonym was used to give a sort of like the teaser, sort of like hint of mystique, I guess. Like where did it come from? Why is it here? And who are 7780 Studio before? Obviously, you say everyone found out at the end it
Yeah,
was Silent Hills and it was Kojima and all of these people. Already, you're at the start of this. You're already like asking questions, like there's something wrong. Is this game cursed? What does it mean, etc. So you sort of through playing it though, you sort of you find out at the end that PT stands for playable teaser, and it's for an upcoming game which is now cancelled, of course, like you mentioned, Silent Hills plural at the end there. And at the time, when I found that, I was absolutely buzzing. Not too early or later or before I was obviously playing the Silent Hill games, so I was happy. I was pumped for the game. I couldn't tell you how excited I was, and obviously, essentially, Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro plus Silent Hill. That's a great
it's
concept,
amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean you've got the master of video games, the master of monsters, making a Silent Hill game. It was like
Mm,
like how could this go wrong? And unfortunately, it went very wrong. It's not something that's people didn't see coming, though. I suppose it was a relationship that was sort of it was coming to the end of the match, if you will. The embers were being snuffed out, even whilst the game was, even whilst the game was being developed. So it was one of those things where it's like, this is great, but I don't know how long this is going to last. Even so, the announcement that both Silent Hills was being cancelled and Hideo Kojima was fired from Konami. I want this to set in. Hideo Kojima was fired. He didn't quit. He got booted from this company.
No.
That is insane. And I don't know what went on in Konami's head. I don't know. Like, we're not going to get the behind the scenes. We're never going to get the full angle of it. But Jesus.
The game was obviously cancelled. I think it was not even a year after, following the disputes between Kojima and Konami.
Something like that.
Konami, obviously Konami, obviously they're the Silent Hill sort of license holders. They're holding it hostage almost at the moment. So it's going nowhere.
The last game that came out was fucking
at the moment.
The
anyway.
PS Vita arcade game.
So PT, it was subsequently removed from the PS Store, and even if you own it, you can't even re-download it. So
patch out
it's
consoles.
sort of becoming like a holy grail.
So even if you had it downloaded,
and they did that as well,
there would be an update where it just wipes it out. Konami are pricks. Just, I think that's gonna be like the name. That's gonna be the theme for this episode. Like. The horror in this is Konami. It's not the spookiness behind Silent Hills. It's just Konami themselves.
No. Yeah. They've sort of ruined it over the years, haven't they? With not ruined it, but they've made it not as good as the first few were. Like when Team Silent were more
so you had Team Silent
ported to
4. 4 was their last one. Sort of wrap up their characters. They went with a Western team after that, with Homecoming onwards.
Yeah.
Homecoming was a bit. So Homecoming is where I like to say, like, your Disney buys Star Wars. Your big giant corporate company buys your childhood product, and basically they squeeze it for merchandise. So you had Team Silent, essentially the authors of this, and then the authors they didn't pass it, but the authors got separated from their project, and when someone else took over, they had no idea what it was. They didn't understand anything. They thought, oh, Pyramid Head. Obviously, Pyramid Head is an iconic character, so let's include him in everything. Sexy nurses, we need more of those. And I generally think that Shattered Memories is alright, but I generally think that the best game that came out of the Western series was Downpour, which it's a good game to end on, but at the same time it's like, but now that I think about it, like, if you include PT as like the last Silent Hill game all products that came out, we're going to forget about Book of Memories. But if you include that's a fucking train wreck in and of itself. But if you include Silent Hills, then it's been like 6 years since we last got a Silent Hill game. But if you include the last full Silent Hill game, that was Downpour. And I don't know when that came out, 2000, was it 13, 14? Yeah.
13, I think.
That sounds about
something
right.
like that. 13.
That's insane. Like 7 years ago. This franchise that even when it was doing bad, they were still pumping games out for it. And when they made one good one, it's like, nope, we're done. We don't know what to do anymore. Spin-offs for life.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they were never going to hit the highs of Silent Hill in terms of quality. I don't know how much they sold. I don't think it was as many as... It's definitely not as many as the Resident Evil series.
Resident Evil sort of had this weird thing going on at the time where it's like even the really bad Resident Evil games were so bad they were good, so there was still playable value to them. I think like it was sort of like they were doing worse than the mainline Resident Evil
yeah. So yeah, it was PC was removed, like I said, and ever since there's been no word on another Silent Hill game in the works. Um, Sadly, this tease was so promising, and I think if it went ahead, I think it would have revived the series almost and given it another great title after a number of
Yeah, I
disappointing
think that's something
releases.
that a lot of people don't realize about this game. So a lot, but the more common trend at the moment is to say that this game was going to be mixed, even if it came out, because it was a playable teaser. It wasn't the actual game itself. And normally I would agree with people, but a demo is generally a section taken from the game. So I would imagine that this would have been either like the introduction or placed somewhere within the game, because I doubt Kojima would have just wasted content like that. And if this was a slice of what the game was going to be, because when we've actually got there was an idea on what this game was going to be, where these houses and the areas were going to be like little bubbles, essentially, where you had these PT moments in them. But like even when we got a taste of that, I mean, Hideo Kojima hasn't done wrong for me yet, and once again, Guillermo del Toro, like the king of monsters, well, the modern king of monsters. Um, it's just it's hard for me to say that this would have been a bad experience, and I think that at the very worst, it would have been a bad game with some really fun ideas in there and some really cool looking monsters.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get on to that later because there is sort of like some clever ideas I think Hideo Kojima uses. What was your sort of first experience playing this game, Scott?
Week
If you
one
remember.
PS4 downloaded, job done. I was playing this, and I'm trying to remember what like the last Silent Hill game I played was before that, because I had this really weird thing when I was younger, where I went through Silent Hill 1 through 3, and then I think the next game I played after that was Homecoming, which, you know, my mind, I was in a very peculiar state when I was younger, where it's like anything that's new, I need to give it a try. And it was a very bad idea, because Homecoming just turned out to be... I don't want to use the word bad, because I don't believe there's a bad Silent Hill game, but I do believe that there are some really awkward ones. And Homecoming is definitely the weakest, in my opinion. But then I jumped back onto 4, the whole idea of ghosts and stuff like that. That was almost like... But I think that Silent Hill 4, 2 and 4 existed to pave the way for what we had in PT, I reckon. But even with that being said, I didn't play Downpour till a little bit after PT. But yeah, I opened it up, started playing it, and then everything like soared from there. I was like, oh, yes, woohoo! We'll get into this later on, but I wasn't completely disappointed by the cancellation of this game, because we did get some really good things out of it, even though one of them is... I'm going to call it inspiration and not a rip-off. I'll just mention the word kitchen for now, and we'll roll onto bits later on. But yeah.
I saw the YouTube videos and went straight to play it, and I'm so glad I did, because obviously you won't get that experience, that proper experience anyway. We have the PC port, which you of course have played recently. I got it on my brother's PS4 at the time, because I didn't have one. And whenever I check to download a game from his now, I always see it there, and I always see the application sitting there, and it just teases me every time I go. It's so frustrating, and that I can't just click on it to download it and play it, because it's so good to play like an actual game on the PS4, and using all the techniques that Kojima put into it.
Think about if it released now. Like, say, like if we had PT was released with the PS5, they got haptic controls, like all that sort of stuff. He would have utilized the crap out of that. That would have been insane. Oh, I'm mourning.
Yeah, the game was trippy to me when I was playing it. I had no idea what to do at times. I was like 15 or 16 or something around that time, 2014. And I was impressed by the visuals as well. The visuals, I think, had a massive impact on how horror games look now, and like you said, the inspiration that I've taken from it. So many games inspired by PT nowadays, and how he uses lighting, it scares its unsettling atmosphere is brilliant, I think.
Definitely, 100%. There's this like, I mean, the obvious one to go to is obviously Kitchen, which was Resident Evil 7's VR teaser, and then you had Beginning Hour, which was Resident Evil 7's demo before that. But then, even if you exclude things like Resident Evil 7, Layers of Fear, The Evil Within had certain elements taken from it as well, especially to,
there was a
yeah,
game. There was a game recently. I can't remember its name, but I think it literally pays homage to it in an Easter egg as well. I'll have to find that right second. Just
so the person who did the PC port, which I played recently, the PC port's fine in and of itself. It doesn't capture the same thing, but it does it the closest they to the way they possibly can. But the same person made a game which was inspired by it. I can't remember what it's called though. Something Lane, and that was on Steam. I think it's still up. My mind might be confusing it with another game, but I'm not quite sure if there was like a dispute saying that there was too many similarities or something like that. But I remember playing that and thinking to myself, yeah, no, this guy's lost the plot. But props for trying to bring something like this back. But yeah, interesting to see dead projects like this, and people are trying to revive them. Almost, it's sort of like, I don't know. I'm the kind of person that, like, if a project fails or something doesn't go through, I don't mind if people try to revive it, but at the same time, I don't want them to go too crazy with it. Yeah. The fan base is almost insane with this stuff, where they have a look at these projects and go, they're actually going to make it, they're going to make Silent Hills. It's like, no, they're not, because Silent Hills died. They're going to make their game, which is their version of it. I think that is a thing that needs to be specified when it comes to this sort of stuff, because no one can do the justice that Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro did.
No. And I'm going to move on to the plot now. I couldn't find that Easter egg, but I'm sure there's one out there. There has to be. So the plot, essentially, you wake up in a dark room, don't you, with nothing in. There's nothing there except for like a table, I think, like a bag.
Yeah, just like a small table in the corner or something like that. I think like it depends on which time you, like, if you get knocked out or not, and all that. The room changes.
Yeah. You see a door open right in front of you when you walk, and then when you walk through, you're sort of greeted with this hallway, and it's poorly lit, it's dirty in places, it's quite lived in, I guess. Already there's like an eerie atmosphere, almost like you're being watched as soon as you see that door open. Anyway, you hear the radio in the near distance reporting on an incident where a father murdered his family, which is obviously disturbing, to say the least. When you walk through the door on the other end, though, of the hallway, you walk through, but you find yourself back at the other end, like you're in a loop. Throughout the rest of the game, then you discover a number of horrors that are unexplainable but terrifying, and very well put together.
Put together. It's almost like a haunted house, if you will. The way things string together, because it's done in a way that I'm sure other horror games have done it before. I'm sure that if I think long enough, I could probably think of one or two. It's almost done as if it is literally like someone decided to open up another world, a virtual world, and jumped in, and they started hanging up scary monsters and ghosts and all this sort of stuff. Because everything feels like it's not practical necessarily, but everything is done using the game's engine without like generating any cutscenes or anything like that. Like Lisa herself, whenever you see anything involving her, it is her model doing that. It's not a separate entity or anything like that. Lighting as well, it's not exactly ray tracing, but it's all dynamic, which is a lot more than games could say in that year. Just everything, even sound itself. blips about the place, like the audio triggers are um, dynamic to the room they're in, and whether or not a door's open, whether or not a door's closed, dependent on what you've done so far, where you are, if you're walking, if you're not. So much thought went into what is essentially a like an under an hour teaser if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I didn't actually have much. Like I said before, I didn't know what I was really doing. So when I was playing through it was more like me exploring rather than trying to like complete something, I guess. With all the amount of times you go through the hallway with the amount of loops, there's so much to find. There's so many hidden things in there, and yeah,
and that's to put like to like put the iteration on that. It is just a hallway. It's not an entire house. It's not a street. It's not this big grand open world or this big series of Metroidvania like areas or anything like that. It's legit a small L-shaped hallway with one room you can go into, and it's not like it's one of those things as well where things keep popping up. Yes, objects keep changing, but things of significance are always there. Occasionally a trigger will pop up, so say like a hole which you can pick your eye through or something like that. You get lots of bits and bobs like that, but everything of plot significance, the entire answer to the puzzle itself is there from the get-go, and it's almost like whenever you're looping, the game is trying to scream to you, no, it's right there in your face. And the fact that it has so much detail in such a small area is insane.
Yeah, we'll get onto that soon because that's the next thing we'll talk about, which is setting. But I'll quickly run through the rest of the plot. You find another father slaughtered his family from the radio, but most of the plot is put together by connecting the dots, almost like using the radio and what's going on around you and all the puzzles and the backstory you get almost from what you see and what you hear. There is interpretation and speculation though, which is also similar to Silent Hill 2, which I think is very good. But yeah, the main antagonist suggests like the antagonist, which is Lisa, suggests paranormal activity as she's like a manifestation of a mother, of the mother from the murdered family from the radio. Or from this house as well, I guess as well. The corridor also just becomes more endless at that point. In the story, in the plot, lights glow red with other creepy visuals as well. It's very cryptic, and that includes the puzzle which you solve as well. When you solve it as well, you sort of set free as well, and then you're able to leave and subsequently complete the game. And then you're rewarded, like you said before, with the cutscene showing the actor Norman Reedus walking through the town of Silent Hill. And then you get the title card flashing up, confirming where you are at Silent Hills in the plural. It's chef's kiss, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful,
it was almost like Hideo Kojima had to have taken inspiration from Aliens at that point. Just like, let's slap an S at the end. And it wasn't even just that, but it was the way it was done. The fact that you have the name Silent Hill and then the S is the last thing to pop up. Like, it's like art. It's like you're watching. When it comes to something like that, it's so minute, and when you think about it, it is stupid, but it proves that this is a director and a developer that knows what people want out of a franchise like this. And it's beautiful.
Literally more. Like, with the plural, it's literally more, isn't it?
But just that alone is exciting enough.
I've never known a teaser to do something like this. It was such a good idea from Kojima and Del Toro and everyone who was involved. And it got people genuinely hyped for it. You see the amount of views that you see on YouTube, the millions of people that are tuning in to watch it and and see what they can find in the teaser, the trailer sort of thing. Yeah, so we harken back to the original Silent Hill games, and you see the similarities clear as day. You see the cryptic plot, the strange visuals, the puzzles, metaphors, motifs, the lot really. There was so much packed into such a little space, which is again similar to the original games, as you say, because they are only a few hours long if you play through them properly.
I mentioned before that I even think that it takes some inspiration from Silent Hill 4. The idea that paranormal activity is involved in this somehow. 4 made it work. It went into that, but I think that's like the idea to make the antagonist essentially a spirit, a ghost. I'm sure there's more to it than that because Silent Hill always has more to it than just that. But the idea that it's this spirit is and paranormal. Just like the everything changing, it's almost like Hideo Kojima looked at the idea of Silent Hill 2's Silent Hill itself is a personal hell, and then he took that idea and went, okay, well, let's see how we can play about with that. I saw that Silent Hill 4 had some ghostly paranormal activity. Maybe we can add, like, squish these two ideas together, and we almost got like, this is what we got out of a Hideo Kojima take of those two games.
Yeah, and it would have been such a, I guess, unique game. It would have used two games that fans. I think 4 is quite. What is it, like a dark horse almost?
A black sheep. It's definitely it's a very underrated. I feel like that it's getting a little bit more. It's getting a bit of I don't know if it's going to come back. Maybe it's just me playing it again more recently. But I was the kind of person that when I played it, I really enjoyed it. I mean, now that I think about it, this game, PT has a lot of Silent Hill 4 stuff, like even like the peepholes and stuff like that. The idea that it's being first person and it's taking that idea of like, you know, you're wondering about solving the mystery of your room in Silent Hill 4. You're doing the same thing here, so I wonder if you really like that game. That would have been fun to find out.
Yeah, they changed the first person as well. It's more personal, I guess, and it set that trend off as well with first person games. It was, I don't know when Outlast came out. I think it might have been before this.
It was definitely before. I think Outlast came out in like 2012, something like that.
Yeah. I'm guessing like
probably
Kojima may have like got onto that bandwagon a little bit. He may have gone onto that bandwagon a little bit. But then he also changed that and made it his own, and he made it more unique as a result with his sort of his view
I mean,
on it.
If you wanted to go back to like the point where horror, I mean, it's becoming more of a recent thing, like slowly growing where people are looking back at retro horror games, and it's amazing to see how far back certain bits and bobs go. So like Amnesia is obviously a really good starting point for like first person horror games, but I do feel like that this was it's sort of like it's a good and a bad thing because this game started almost the trend for personalized horror, which was the idea of you are given no objective, you're given no clue as what to do, and you have to use your eyes to figure out the scenario. And I feel like that since then we've had a lot of games that have attempted to do the same thing but haven't come to the same realization of it. And I do think that the closest we've gotten to PT is Laser Fear. But even with that being said, like, you know, it's quality over genre, I guess. It depends which one you want to go for, but I do think that this is a one-of-a-kind experience.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the setting, it's like you say, it's an L-shaped corridor. It's very, very, I guess, limited, but also maximizes the space as well. There's so many unique ways that the setting's utilized to scare. It's less of a setting, I guess, and more of a character in itself. It feels lived in, but it also shows signs of like a backstory. Again, the visuals bring it to life and make it feel more real, like you're watching something in real time. And then, like you said before as well, Resident Evil 7 borrowed massively
Mm.
from this with the, as well as other games as well. There's plenty out there. There are so many different iterations of the same corridor
Yeah.
in this game, but with subtle changes like, that you may not even notice half the time as well. Sometimes there are massive changes which will take center stage, and it's clever and it gets
Yeah,
under
I
your
mean,
skin as
now
well.
that I think about it, the scene in Resident Evil 7 just after you get out of the basement and you sneak into the house for the first time, as you're going up from the
Yeah,
basement there, that hallway with the phone is almost identical to that one strip of hallway
yeah,
in
it is.
PT, because
Yeah.
you legit have it's not a bathroom, but you've got that door to the right. There's that door around the corner that's locked off.
Hmm.
It's not. I don't know if it's no. It's not the very end, but the door that goes down to the basement, and then you see, you know, you get a spooky, creepy, pale lady jumping at you again. It's almost like they went, oh well, if they don't do that, then I guess that we will do that. So maybe that's a little jab. I don't know. It's like such a small thing in the large scheme of Resident Evil 7 that I think I am willing to call it homage to a missed opportunity.
Hmm. Hmm. But yeah, with this setting, I've always felt claustrophobic. I guess it's very
Mm.
narrow in as a hallway because the hallway in my house, at least, it's a lot wider and it's a lot spacious. And with this one, when you turn that corner the first time when you see Lisa, you just you just stop and you just don't move and you're looking and you're thinking, what is that? But again, it uses this claustrophobia and you can't get away. You've got to go forward and you've got to meet these
Yeah.
challenges like face on
I don't know
almost.
if you know how Lisa works exactly in PT. It's actually yeah,
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
it's insane the way they integrated her into it. And there are trigger moments, but it's like I said before, it's almost haunted house esque. I won't go into it too much at the moment, but
yeah.
she adds to the feeling of almost like being trapped in like a hamster ball, like you are running around in circles constantly, and the fact that this
Mm,
entity is always there behind you regardless of where you are. I mean, you go through
yeah,
one area and then you start exactly where you came from, but she's still behind you. It's like
mm,
I mean, to quote Far Cry 3, this is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting change. That's
yeah,
literally what this teaser is, and I think it handles it amazingly with its
yeah,
setting.
yeah. So if anyone doesn't know, with I think it was recently. I don't know how long ago, maybe a few months ago or something. There was like a few articles and like YouTube videos going around. Someone hacked the camera,
Yeah,
I believe, and then they found out that Lisa, the main antagonist, was always, and I mean always,
yeah,
behind the player. It was used very cleverly by, I guess, Kojima. It gives that level of like creepiness, I guess. You didn't know this before, but now that you know it, it also it makes it more creepier, I guess, as a
it's
result. That you know she's always
yeah,
there behind
it's
you.
almost like the closest thing we've ever had to practicality in a CGI virtual
Hmm.
environment. Like as if once again someone jumped in there
Yeah,
and hung her up behind the player, let almost like a pop out ghost
yeah,
that someone's purposely put into the game or something like that. But the idea that like whenever you like one of my favorite scares, I love subtle scares. Like you know, jump scares are just come and go, but
yeah,
subtle scares are amazing in my opinion. And one of the best in the entire game
mm,
is Lisa's shadow right behind you twitching. And the idea that, yeah, in
yeah,
that scenario, if you turn around, obviously she jump scares you, but the idea that that is actually her model being pinned up, following you behind, it's not a fake shadow that they put in. It's her model is bouncing off the light behind her. Is that is
yeah,
like Kojima stopped the entire room and went, "We can't go forward unless we put this creepy blow up doll following the main character throughout the entire game." Like it's madness. Only
Yeah.
he could think of something like that, and I think it's all the better for it.
Yeah. And speaking of well, antagonist characters, we'll move on to the characters quite quickly. The main protagonist isn't really the highlight here in this
He's more of your
playable teaser
observer.
anyway. We yeah, we're thinking he would have been more so in the main game
Yeah.
because it uses Norman
So-
Reedus, well, his model at least.
The idea that Hideo Kojima wanted to create small bubbles with their own individual Silent Hill experiences around Silent Hill itself would have made for this quite like almost what's the word, like Grim Reaper-esque of a main character who goes around, solves their problem, puts them to rest, that sort of thing. So I guess that Norman Reedus would have been. I mean, for him to see multiple versions of Silent Hill, that would have had to make his personality and his own story quite a deep one. Maybe he was an overseer at something like that. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? We'll never know. Kojima knows.
Yeah. So instead of that, well, instead of having like a main protagonist in this teaser, you find out more backstory about the other characters, so the family and their tragic end. I think the other family as well, like I mentioned before, and that also includes the main antagonist, like we're speaking about Lisa. Can you speak a little bit more about her?
So
Maybe a design.
Lisa herself is really interesting because, as you've mentioned before, this continues the trend of previous Silent Hill games, classic Silent Hill games, where they keep a lot of the stuff ambiguous. And one of the things that I think that this kept ambiguous is when you hear obviously we'll talk about the man on the radio, but when you talk about the crimes which he's referring to, you spend a little bit of the time trying to figure out which sentences and which lines correlate to which crime. So obviously there are two crimes that have happened. One that is happening presently, and one that has happened in the house. And he mentions Lisa towards the end of it, and it begs the question: like, is she a part of that? Is she part of that crime, or whether or not like the main antagonist of the entire thing is following through this plot, killing families and sending them to Silent Hill or something like that, and she's just appeared as a demonic ghost unrest. But in terms of her design, she's creepy. She's generic ghost lady, really. White dress, green ectoplasm down her mouth, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I found like some of her animations a little bit humorous. It's very Gmod-esque when you realise what's actually happening. Just like her going stretching out. It's insane. But I think that
Uncanny Valley almost.
Yeah. I think for like the purposes of like lighting in the one scene that you get a clear look at her, besides from the jump scares, her design's enough to freak you out and for it to tie into the actual story itself. I mean, she's very spooky. For lack of she's a typical haunted house ghost.
Yeah. I think the first time you see it is when you turn that corner, and then I think it uses the lighting. PT uses the lighting to almost make her. You don't see her fully at the start. So it's almost like a mystery. It's so scary.
A light behind her. My mind got tricked because I thought that the light behind her was turned off. The light behind us turned on, and the light in front of her is turned off. But all the other lights are turned on because it's like, how can I not see her face clearly? But you've only got like her figure and her white dress. That's it. You get like her creepy grin in shot as well, but everything else is just blacked out. And that's once again, that's dynamic lighting. That's not her model hasn't been shaded to look like that. It's been positioned in the perfect spot to give off that. So that's insane.
Yeah. Again, it uses that setting perfectly. Like I said before, we were talking about the turn on the corner and seeing her, and then in terms of her like in model, I've got a few notes here. She's very tall, like almost strangely tall. Like you don't really see many women as tall as this woman, and you don't know whether this is because of her being like a paranormal entity or if she was actually this tall. I don't think she would have been this tall. I think the Silent Hill sort of like
It almost demonizes
world, sort of like
the
yeah.
beings. Yeah.
Yeah, she looks horrifying. She's got a messed up face. One of her eyes are torn out. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm guessing that happened to her, I guess. And
I think that's
got
mentioned
that,
on the radio. Oh no,
that part,
it is as well.
Like you said before, the
the
picture frame which says gouge it out. Yeah.
Yeah, where you've got like the yeah, just ooh.
Yeah, yeah. So she's got that going for her, I guess. Doesn't look very, very pleasing to the face or to the eye, literally. So I guess it was implied that when she was alive, she was pregnant before being murdered by her husband. And we see his stomach as well. It's quite bloodied in reference to the baby dying, unfortunately. Now she's like a tormented a ghost or spirit who emits this sound like similar to like hysterical like sobbing and laughing. If you get too close, you can be killed, like jump scared by her and then killed as a result. Where she snaps your neck, she like lifts you up and then you right in her face, and you can't escape it. You can't hide behind your hands. Almost, you've got to face that straight on.
Yeah.
She's generally a creepy character, and you can't do anything to defeat her. So she's not there to be defeated or anything.
She's an obstacle
there to torment you almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't get rid of her. Now she's able to show up at any time, and you can't do anything to stop her. So it is terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's I'm not normally one for games where you can't defend yourself, but the idea that you can't defend yourself here, but that doesn't mean that it's completely impossible. It's not Outlast, for example, where it's like the only way forward is through them. There are ways you can completely void Lisa if you want to, with the exception of one moment. But it plays with her enough that she almost feels like she's a part of the setting.
Yeah.
So I can forgive that, and I can say that she's an excellently used character.
Yeah, I guess that also kind of makes sense because she lived there at one point. I'm guessing this is her house.
Yeah,
it has to be her house.
It's like so either it does make sense or a recreation of her house.
Yeah, from Silent Hill. Yeah, well, it has to be as well because you go through the setting and it gets changed so much. It's obviously like it has to be like in a different plane of existence, like in the Silent Hill world. There is technically another character as well. They're in the bathroom as well. It is horribly. It's Lisa's dead like fetus, I guess you could say. Unborn baby. You laugh at it, but when you think of the concept, it's very disturbing.
It's very disturbing, but it's the fact that it's in this game. It's the fact that it's like, oh, by the way, one of the main characters of this playable teaser is dead baby, and it's just chilling in the bathroom.
Jesus. So this dead fetus is found bloodied in a sink in the bathroom. But it does have the ability to speak. At one point, I don't think it does straight away. You do hear it crying quite a lot. It's like that "Hello, my baby, hello, my darling" sort of thing.
Leaps out the sink, starts dancing.
So this character almost they talk in like cryptic messages. It's very deeply disturbing. I'd say fucked up to say the least. The visuals match the concept as well, which is downright horrific. Babies are obviously symbolic of innocence and happiness, whereas this poor, unfortunate, unborn baby of Lisa's is corrupted and almost in a limbo. Almost, they were never born, and they only serve as like a reminder of the horrific acts
almost
of
like
one deranged person, the father.
Almost like when she was sent to Silent Hill. Because she was killed, the baby's like caught between life and death at the moment. Like the fetus hasn't actually died itself, but it's more like because she was taken there, the baby was taken there as well, but it's like a separate entity.
yeah, you don't meet the father in this, do you? At
No,
all? You only hear from him from the radio.
it's
But
implied that I think it's implied that the dude on the radio, the son, is the one who supposedly killed the father.
yeah, or I don't know who found the bodies. I can't remember
It just said like
what it was,
police
but
have reported. So I think that it was just called
right.
in at some point, maybe a
Police,
neighbour or something like that.
yeah, yeah, but there's character wise, there's not many other characters. I guess you could say the radio
Who's
host
an interesting
is
one?
almost a character.
Because
Yeah,
so at one
go
part
ahead.
it's assumed that he is the son, and then later on when the teaser starts to when the trailer starts to play, he almost transforms. It's almost like he's the this. I'm guessing that whoever the radio presenter is, he
Yeah,
would have been Norman Reedus's opposite almost. So he
right.
maybe that's what Norman Reedus was. Maybe he was a news reporter, because that would make sense with him observing lots of
Right.
things. He's only
Yeah.
reporting in on situations.
Yeah.
Or maybe even Norman
Yeah.
Reedus was a police detective. So like you have the opposite of the downpour scenario or something like that. So the idea of seeing everyone in their own personal prisons, and with
Yeah.
and maybe he got really welled up at one of the people he was trying to arrest and just killed him or something like that. I'm thinking too deeply about this. With that being said, the radio
Yeah.
guy, he stops talking about the scenario in a radio sense and almost talks directly to Norman Reedus right at the end. So I would assume that he would have played a large part in the game's plot overall, rather than just a passing role. Because he says like, "I'm bringing my
It
little
does
toys
make sense.
with me."
Yeah, exactly. He does at times, other than Lisa, he does like sort of steal the show, I guess you could say. Like he takes center stage almost. It's quite interesting. It's although there's like not many characters, there's so much backstory in this short amount of time that it makes them feel more rich and like almost more like believable.
Yeah,
I guess. Although it's not really believable considering it's such a like weird concept.
it's immersive.
With it being Silent
It's very it drags you into
Yeah.
believing the scenario you're in. But yeah, like in terms of like how the family functions, you can get a lot of that just from either listening to a radio or looking about the place. It's clear that the husband was a very abusive person,
Yeah.
and this even before he kills anyone.
Yeah.
That Lisa was like, she wasn't just killed, but she was slaughtered. Essentially, she was mutilated. So you get this really good idea of that, and I don't know. Maybe there's you know what, my brain is like running at 1,000,000 miles per hour now, because I'm thinking like, oh, maybe Norman Reedus, maybe it's Norman Reedus's dad or something like that, and then you could say this is a homage to like all of the Silent Hill games, 1, 2, 3, 4, Homecoming, Shattered Memories, because of everyone's own personal weird limbo, and then you've got Downpour as well. Like you can throw everything in there. It's like Hideo Kojima sat back and went, let's see, how many games have you done? Hold my beer, and then you just like throws them all together and creates a masterpiece. We only get less than an hour of that masterpiece, but it's still a masterpiece nevertheless.
And now we'll move on to the sound design. I think I wanted to talk about. There's only this, and then I want to talk about gameplay, and then like one memorable moment that you remember from the first time playing. So the sound design, there's like no soundtrack whatsoever. I think I remember. There's only like ambient or diegetic ambient sound design, like rain hitting the windows, the creaking of the lamp hanging from the ceiling, floorboards creaking as well. It's all great. There's also the radio, the baby crying and screaming.
Oh, that's my favourite Silent Hill track.
And all the eerie sounds that Lisa
Oh, the baby crying.
Well. Baby crying. Tune. There's also that, and there's doors slamming as well. It's all done well. It's done creepily. It's horrifying. It's all like you said like before. It's like a horror haunted house almost. You've got everything there that you need to make it sort of immersive. It also uses silence to its advantage as well, I think. Suspense is built where nothing may happen whilst walking around one of the loops in the hallway. And that pretty much keeps you guessing throughout the rest of the game, and it puts you on edge throughout as well. So what did you think of the sound design? Do you think it's used effectively?
Yeah, it's almost used like how like once again to refer to Alien, it uses it almost in a very similar way. The best tracks are diegetic. The best tracks are from scenarios that happen. I mean, even when the hallway goes red and you start running like mad, that's not music in the background. That's Norman Reedus' heartbeat going thump, 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 thump. That's not music. That's his heartbeat going that. So the idea to do that was very, very clever in my opinion. Very cool. So yeah, I liked it. I mean, I'm fairly like give it or take it when it comes to music and horror games. I think that Silent Hill 2 did it best in terms of sound design, and then past that point, you've got some really cool moments involving just sound by itself, but nothing's really come up to that. So I think just using diegetic music or sound was a really good choice for this.
Yeah, definitely. And then moving on quite quickly, gameplay as well. As it was a playable teaser, you kind of limited the gameplay. It was limited to like walking, exploration, and figuring out what was happening. And the main element almost to it, to the ending at least, was solving the puzzle as well. Which again, like we mentioned before, it actually utilizes the PS4 hardware as well. So Kojima does this a lot, doesn't he? He uses, in this at least, he uses the microphone to his advantage, and also the controller as well. He did it in Metal Gear Solid as well. I think
he did it in one.
Was it the Praying Mantis boss?
Yeah, so you had to you could defeat him with just one analog stick, but he had it all inverted and messed up, and it would do weird shit. So the way you would actually have to tackle him is to plug a second controller into the second port and take him out that way, because then you would be immune. So it was really cool, like fourth wall breaking moment. But yeah, like you just imagine something like this done on PS5 hardware, and like with the haptic controls once again, vibrations on all sides, full 3D surround sound. If this was a full game, we would be shooting ourselves in VR at the moment.
I was gonna say, especially with VR, he would. I don't know what he would do with VR. We got Resident Evil 7 with VR, and that was very good.
I'd probably say my only
PT would
my only complaint about Resident Evil 7 VR is the fact that he didn't utilize move controllers or anything like that. So I'd probably say that if he was going to implement that, he'd probably implement the use of hands as well.
Do it properly. Yeah, do it properly. Other than using the control, because when you use a controller in VR, you're sort of taking out a bit. You know you're there, you can see it around, but you are taking about, and you know
it's like you're holding a brick with you throughout this imaginary world. They're a bit weird.
Yeah. So yeah, it looked like Kojima had some interesting plans on how he can use the PS4 hardware to his advantage. At this stage, I think the PS4, I don't know how long it had been out for. Maybe like a year or so. I think it came out in 2013, and
like end of 2013, early
about
2014.
November 2013, end of 20. And this came out in like August 2014, so he must have been working on. I don't know how long he was working on this.
He would have been knocking on Sony's door.
He was obviously
would have been like
these new features,
getting every little bit of hardware detail out of them. I mean, he loves to make use of this stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not surprising that he's testing it here. So what do you think to the gameplay in this? It's sort of like a haunted house almost, isn't it?
It's simplistic,
really?
But it's what it needs to be. A lot of people have a go at walking simulators, and you could definitely class this as one of those. But as a demo or a teaser, I mean, if you're going to counter it as its own game, I suppose you could say it's a little bit disappointing in that regard, because all you're really doing is zooming in with your fake mechanical eyes
Yeah.
different writing on the wall. But in terms of like a demo, it is what it needs to be. You know, you just need a slice of it. It's a haunted house. You're
Yeah.
there for the experience and the ride. You don't want to peel back the wall too much. You don't want to, all of a sudden you found out that
Yeah.
Norman Reedus had a gun in his pocket the entire time and shoots Lisa in the head gangster style, and that's it. You don't want anything like that. So it was perfect for this.
And you mentioned quite earlier before as well. We always say mentioned earlier because we always run over
Yeah.
these points. It's quite like a like weird thing we do. But you mentioned before that the Resident Evil 7
Kitchen.
demo.
Yeah.
Don't know which one. It's called the kitchen one. I didn't actually play that one. I do remember playing the other demo. I think there was the one after
Beginning
where you got
hour.
like the dummy thing. I don't know if that's different.
Yeah, so you had two. You had one that was around
Um,
that wasn't called Resident Evil, that was VR exclusive, and then you had Beginning Hour that came out for Resident Evil.
Right. So yeah, the one that I remember playing the like the actual demo for Resident Evil 7. It does very similar things to this. It doesn't reveal
Yeah.
too much. You don't get a gun like you do in the main game. You're doing, I guess you're doing a puzzle in it. But yeah, no, it is very much like
Yeah,
PT. It
they
does
even
that,
had
but
like a weird
I don't think
paranormal
it's as
thing in
effective.
there as well, where I can't remember what her name is for the life of me, but the girl in Resident Evil 7, like she walks backwards at one point past like the door frame and stuff like that.
Mia?
Yeah, Mia, that's it. Like she's almost like the ghost of the house for this demo, and it's like they just did this to say, look, we can do PT but better, and it's like, yeah, but if the final game isn't representative of the product you're selling here, then it doesn't matter, and that's the point, really. I mean, a million other games can try to replicate this as much as they want, but if they didn't get as their demos to try and entice you to like, oh, we can do this but better. Here's a little demo to see what we can do. It's like, okay, fine, your demo might be enjoyable, but it has to be representative of the final product that you make. And Beginning Hour was not. It was weird. It was bizarre because when Resident Evil 7 actually came out, it was like, oh, this is just a first-person Resident Evil game. Instead of their supernatural PT clone that they tried to make.
Yeah. It's that, yeah, very similar. And the gameplay, I'm guessing the plans for Silent Hills, obviously you wouldn't just be doing the same thing as you're doing this. I'm guessing you would have weapons.
Either weapons or different gameplay
like
elements as you go throughout.
does.
So I'm guessing that this would be a lot more observational inspired. So sort of like I'm trying to think of an example. Like you sort of go to different houses, and then there'll be like different techniques to go through them. So like different gameplay elements.
Yeah. And so finishing off, I want to sort of talk about a favorite or memorable moment. Do you have one from PT?
The madness scene was pretty cool. Only because that's when I feel like that's the toughest puzzle to get through. The second when the world starts to shift to red, it does it very gradually. So originally it's just like the end of the hallway, that light's red, and then when you go through there, it starts to go redder and redder until eventually you're running around in circles and circles. The game is making you panic on purpose. You've got the heartbeat going in the background, vision's blurred, and you're sprinting. It's only when you realise, oh shit, the answer's like here, you just need to calm the fuck down. Because the game is trying to make you run around in circles forever. It's trying to convince the player that this is the way to go forward. So I really like that because it gets into your head. It's a moment where the game talks to the player, not to the main character. So I thought that was quite good.
Yeah. For me, there's a moment where you walk through the hallway and you hear the baby crying in the bathroom. I had to search this up, so I got like memories, but I do have vivid memories of this. So some of the lights are out, I think, but then you hear a crash of glass down the end of the hallway. I think it's near the radio. And then when you go to investigate, you see that one of the picture frames have come off the wall, and you're thinking like, how has this happened? So you investigate, you look around, you explore. But if you turn around and you look up towards
that balcony,
the balcony bit, you just see this this image. Well, silhouette almost, and you see Lisa up there just standing you with this creepy grin on her face, just watching you
And she
quietly.
backs away. Oh.
And it's so well done, and she backs away quietly. The thing is with this, you don't see her do that like weird jump towards you. You see her actually. It looks like she's like not even like turning around or anything. You just see her just like going backwards like this.
Yeah.
You see them on the camera. It's like this, and she just goes out into the. She just fades into the background. You're just thinking, where's she gone? And then I think you hear her like laughing as well or something like that. And you just like, shit, what am I gonna do here? Where is she? And things like that. So it's really well done, and it's so creepy and haunting, and I absolutely love it.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, 100%. Because it happens. I don't know if that's before or after, but there's like a banging on the door or something like that. Lots of moments close by each other. But yeah, I do remember that because you see the glass on the floor and you're looking up to see where it could have come from, and then obviously she's up there on the balcony. Yeah, that was pretty creepy. It's one of those moments where it's like she's not doing anything and she's just staring at you. And it's like the fact that she's not doing anything is the creepy bit.
Exactly. Yeah. You just it's unpredictable. You don't know what she's gonna do, when she's gonna jump at you. If she's gonna, I remember there's another part where she slams the door shut when you see her face.
Oh yeah. It's like
oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, what? Okay, and then like other parts, she's just quiet, so you just like you don't know what's going on.
You see her walking past.
So
the door in the bathroom as well,
that was PT. Yeah, that was PT. Very very good little playable teaser. You can play the PC version now. I don't know if there's like more installments coming out. I don't know if you've read
so
that.
No,
anywhere.
the PC version is it's done to the best of its ability, but the guy who made the PC PT did his own project inspired by it, which is all right. It's I wouldn't say that it lives up to the potential of PT itself, but I think it's definitely worth the play.
No. Yeah, definitely, because you obviously can't play it now on the PS4. It's completely gone, which is sad again. But I think everyone really needs to play this to just witness like the horrors in the game and to see how much of an impact it's had on like modern horror at 100%. The moment in 2020 and a few years back. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in for the third episode of the Co-op Chat podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and we hope to do another one in the near future. So thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.